Hello and welcome to the first instalment of a new series of podcasts made by the Schuman Trainees Committee right here in the European Parliament. Today we're talking about one of the hottest topics out there right now, the environment. I'm Talia Goldman.
And I'm Sam Stolton. And today we're talking to Maltese MEP Miriam Dalli, who is the coordinator on environmental policy for the S&D group. And she's also been voted the most influential Maltese MEP of 2017 by votewatch.eu.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
So we're going to kick off by talking a little bit about ocean plastics and the question of plastic packaging in general, which is something which has brought a lot of scandal and headlines at the moment, and it's a topic that you are also very interested in. So you wrote in an article last October for the Parliament magazine that essentially a sweeping ban of plastics would really be quite unrealistic. So if we're not going to do that, what are the specific solutions that could really work instead?
Some people are comfortable saying that we need to ban plastics, but I consider that to be a sweeping statement, and I think that it contributes very little to the proper discussion of where we want to go when it comes to plastics. Now, let me be very frank. I come from a very small island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and the Mediterranean Sea is one of the seas which is most polluted by plastics. So I'm no big fan of plastics at all. But I do understand that plastics is in a lot of products that we use. It is also very important. For example, we need to keep our food fresh. If we have a look at also plastics in a lot of products, such as cars, for example, even the things that you usually have on your desk. So I'm not for a ban, a complete ban when it comes to plastic, but I'm all for managing properly plastics, because we need to understand that there is a lot of waste of plastics when it comes to packaging of products in supermarkets, for example. There is a lot of waste of plastics when you go and get a drink. You can take a reusable cup, for example, if you want to have your favorite coffee or tea. You can ban completely plastic straws, in my opinion. So there are issues that we can actually address, but we need to understand that plastics are part of our life, our everyday life, and we need to have the proper balance. So I'm all for reusing products, I'm all for recycling plastics, but having the proper balance to make sure that we do not have plastic waste in our environment, in our seas, and ending up with plastics also in our everyday consumption products. So we have a situation today where microplastics make their way to the seas, they end up in the fish that we eat, and they end up in our plates. I don't want that. I don't want that for my children, I don't want that for future generations, but most importantly, I don't want that for us here living today.
Absolutely.
So you touched briefly there about food waste, and essentially the idea that if you completely ban single-use packaging, particularly in food packaging, there is a risk that this could often lead to a greater amount of food waste, which then translate into a greater amount of CO2 emissions. So you have to have this, potentially have this balance between dealing with plastics, but also food waste with on-the-go food packaging. So in your opinion, what should we be prioritizing? Should we be prioritizing innovation in recycling infrastructures or innovation in materials?
It's all about innovation. So it's all about research, it's all about innovation. I would focus primarily on innovating the product per se, to make sure that we have a product which we can use more than once. I'm not in favor of single-use plastic. I think that we have a product which can be used more than one time, using a product and then dispose of it, littering and throwing it away. We can have a situation where we can use plastic more than once, but making sure that we dispose of it properly, manage it properly, and make do with other alternatives, because alternatives do exist. If we research more, if we innovate more, we can find other alternatives, and we can use plastics for the necessary and for the necessities where it is most convenient and best placed as a product, but there are other alternatives that we can use. I mean, we mentioned straws earlier on.
Yeah.
There are straws made of paper, which people can use. They serve the same purpose, and many people use a straw only once, they throw it away. I mean, and if you are using a paper straw, you can use it and then throw it away, but at least we are avoiding all that waste of plastics, which is many times ending up in our oceans.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
of course, yeah.
And now moving on to recycling. So MEPs recently supported the circular economy package at the vote in Strasbourg, which concerns the reduction of landfill waste. Now, in your own home country of Malta, this has been a problem over a number of years.
Yes.
What can be done in your own home country to improve this problem?
Oh, I have to admit, this is something I'm really not proud of. Unfortunately, for many, many years, we had the mentality of throwing our waste into landfills. Now, bear in mind, my country is a very small island where we can't take up more areas just to have landfills. So I don't see myself in a country where we have landfills popping up. But it is a fact that we haven't recycled for a very long time. We haven't reached our recycling targets as yet. I'm hopeful that things are changing. I will be one of those people who would want to push change, and I will be pushing change as well. So I'm looking forward, for example, as from September in Malta, we will have a nationwide municipal waste separation, because until now, this has worked only in 9 localities in Malta, and we have a sister island, which is small, it's called Gozo, and they have this pilot project working over the sister island. And starting September, people in their homes can separate municipal waste, which would then go for recycling. I'm hopeful also that this step will help my country to increase also its recycling targets. So I'm hoping people will separate more and we will have more recycling percentages, which eventually would help our environment. It's all about culture, it's all about mentality, but it's all about having the proper policies in place. So as you rightly said, we voted in the European Parliament for much more ambitious targets. But I'm one of those who believes that when you have policy who is triggering that change, then you've got a whole chain reaction. Because once you have the policy in place, industry needs to change, cities need to change, governments need to change. And that is what triggers change ultimately. So I'm hopeful that in the next years, maybe we'll be sitting here and, you know, I can give you a different picture which would look more what I would consider to be acceptable.
Great.
And of course you have the added struggle with the fact that you're a coastal community. But this is very clear that all of this discussion and questions about recycling and plastics, etc., this also amounts to a big problem with CO2 emissions and global warming. And we know that in 2015, there was COP21 and 195 countries signed up to reducing, to limiting global warming to keeping it at 2 degrees. So really what we want to know is how is the EU progressing with its targets from your opinion? So
we were all there at COP21. I was there myself. It was amazing to see everyone coming together. Now I know that there is the United States taking a step back, but I'm still hopeful because I'm seeing individual states stepping up. And I believe that we are living in a different world. We are living in a world where we have different stakeholders understanding their responsibilities, understanding that if we do not step up, things will be much, much worse. You have industries coming forward, you have states coming forward, you have cities coming forward, and I think that there is much of a bigger awareness out there. Now, what I would like to see is not for the European Union to speak only about being a leader when it comes to climate change, but to actually act on those words. Why am I saying this? Because we had very important legislation, such as the emission trading scheme, for example, the effort sharing regulation. I was involved in both. And sometimes I get the feeling that member states speak a lot, but then when it comes to actually taking concrete action, they always take a bit of a step backwards.
Okay.
And they can do much, much more. And I believe that we need to understand that now is the time to actually make sure that we act before it is too late. Recently, I had a meeting with the president coming from the Marshall Islands, and you start understanding the real situation that they are facing on the ground. So for them, climate change is not a myth out there that people say is happening, but that they are not feeling. They are feeling what is happening when you see your country diminishing in size because it's being taken over and sea levels are rising, when you see that your drinking water has salt water seeping in, then you start understanding what are the real consequences of climate change. And the European Union needs to speak about this, but we need to act, and we need to act decisively and effectively.
Okay, great. And you're also a rapporteur for a proposal to reduce CO2 emissions for new passenger cars. What would you say are the tangible and practical benefits for cities and communities for such a proposal?
This is not only about the environment. So we're speaking about the topic, transport, emissions from transport, which are still very high in the European Union, and something which we need to address, particularly if by 2050 we want to have a decarbonized economy. So what we are speaking about in today's world is also environment, it's public health, because if we have better air quality in our cities, at the end of the day, it's our citizens who are going to benefit, but it's also about the competitiveness of the European industry. I'm seeing, and people are seeing what's happening in other continents with cleaner cars, with electric vehicles, with zero and low emission vehicles. The European Union has a thriving automotive industry which cannot lag behind. So we had the proposal of the European Commission. I want the European Union to be more ambitious than that. The technology is there, and we can do so much more. And we need to make sure that we do not go 10 years down the line and see other continents taking the lead when it comes to the automotive industry, and we are still lagging behind because the whole world is going towards having more cleaner vehicles. Ultimately, it's cleaner air, less diseases for our citizens, and also it pays the industries. And when I'm speaking about the industry, it's not only the automotive industry, but all the industries that can be involved if we go really and truly towards zero and low emission vehicles.
I think it's a really interesting point to end on as well. The idea we have to really adapt and change our communities and really push government as well to push more effective change, not in terms of just in public policy, but also in our everyday lives.
Exactly. And we need to be leaders. We need to be innovative, and we need to lead.
Yeah, we need to have courage as well, and I think these initiatives are really important to follow up.
Well, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for coming to talk to us today on such an important issue, and we look forward to having some more advancements and having some more heated debate about it soon.
Definitely. Thanks for coming along.
Thanks a lot, and I look forward to meeting you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.